Dr. Han Jisoo stared at her computer screen for the fifth time that night. The numbers didn't make sense, but they kept showing up the same way. According to her calculations, some black holes might not destroy everything that fell into them. This went against everything scientists believed about black holes. She took off her glasses and rubbed her tired eyes. The office around her was quiet and dark, lit only by her computer screen and a small desk lamp. Outside her window, Seoul's city lights twinkled in the distance. It was already past midnight, but she couldn't stop working. Not when she was this close to something big. "This can't be right," she said to herself, reaching for her coffee cup. It was empty, like the last 3 cups before it. She had been in her office at the Seoul Advanced Research Institute for 16 hours straight, checking and rechecking her work. Jisoo stood up and walked to the whiteboard that covered one wall of her office. It was filled with equations and diagrams, all about black holes and how they behaved. She had spent 3 years working on this project, trying to understand what happened to things that fell into black holes. Most scientists thought that black holes crushed everything that fell into them. The gravity was supposed to be so strong that nothing could survive. But Jisoo's calculations showed something different. They suggested that some special types of black holes might have areas where things could pass through without being destroyed. She picked up a marker and started writing new equations. Her hands shook slightly from too much coffee, but her mind was clear. Each line of math led to the same conclusion. There was a chance, a small one, but real, that something could survive inside a black hole. Jisoo's phone buzzed on her desk. It was a message from her colleague, Dr. Park Min-ho. "Still at work. You need to see this." She quickly typed back, "Come to my office. I found something strange." 10 minutes later, Min-ho knocked on her door. He was wearing his usual neat suit, looking fresh despite the late hour. "You look terrible," he said with a friendly smile. "When was the last time you slept?" "Sleep can wait," Jisoo said, waving him over to her computer. "Look at this." She pulled up her calculations and showed him the results. "I've checked it 20 times. The math says we're wrong about black holes." Min-ho leaned close to the screen, his expression changing from curiosity to surprise. This changes everything we know about space travel," he said slowly. "If you're right, we might be able to explore black holes up close." Jisoo finished his sentence. "Maybe even survive passing through one." They spent the next hour going through her work. Min-ho checked every equation, asked tough questions, and tried to find mistakes. But there weren't any. The math was solid. "We need to tell the Space Federation about this," Min-ho said finally. "They're the only ones with the resources to test your theory." Jisoo nodded, but fear crept into her stomach. Testing her theory would mean sending people near a black hole. If she was wrong, those people would die. If she was right, it would be the biggest discovery in human history. She looked out her window at the night sky. Somewhere up there, black holes were waiting to be explored. They had been mysteries for so long, places of death and destruction in everyone's minds. But maybe, just maybe, they were something else, gateways to places humans had never been. "Make the call," she told Min-ho. "But first, help me make these explanations simpler. If we're going to convince the Space Federation to risk a mission, they need to understand exactly what we found." As they worked through the night, neither of them knew they were starting something that would change humanity's future forever. In her simple office in Seoul, Dr. Han Jisoo had just taken the first step toward solving one of space's biggest mysteries. Could anyone survive a black hole? The answer would turn out to be more amazing than anyone could imagine. Captain Lee Do-hyun sat in his office at the International Space Federation headquarters in Geneva, reading Dr. Han's report for the 3rd time. His coffee had gone cold, forgotten as he studied the papers in front of him. The sun was setting outside his window, painting the Swiss mountains in orange and gold. "They want us to do what?" he asked, looking up at his deputy, who stood quietly by his desk. Send a crew to study a black hole up close, she replied. Dr. Han's calculations suggest it might be possible. Do-hyun stood up and walked to the window. In his 20 years of spaceflight, he had never received such an unusual request. The Federation had always stayed far away from black holes. They were considered too dangerous, too unpredictable. But now, his phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was a video call from Seoul. When he answered, Dr. Han Jisoo's face appeared on the screen. She looked nervous but determined. "Captain Lee," she said, bowing slightly. "Thank you for reading my report. I know it sounds impossible." "Impossible is a strong word, Dr. Han," Do-hyun replied. "But this mission would be very dangerous. Why do you think it could work?" Jisoo explained her theory using simple terms. She talked about how some black holes might have special areas where their crushing force was weaker. These areas might let ships get close enough to study them properly. She had found a small black hole at the edge of our solar system that matched her calculations perfectly. "We need to understand black holes better," she said. "If I'm right, we could learn things about space that we never knew before. If I'm wrong." She paused. "Well, that's why we need the best crew possible." Do-hyun nodded slowly. He had lost friends to space accidents before. The thought of sending people near a black hole made his stomach tight with worry. But if Dr. Han was right, this could be the biggest discovery in human history. "Who would you want on this mission?" he asked. Jisoo's face brightened. "I've already made a list. We need Commander Kim Yuri as our pilot. She's the best there is. Dr. Choi Yun-ha for medical support. She wrote the book on how space affects the human body. Engineer Park Min-ho knows more about spacecraft systems than anyone else. And," she hesitated, "I want to go too. My calculations got us this far. I should be there to see if they're right." Do-hyun looked at the sunset again. The sky had turned dark purple, with stars beginning to show. Somewhere out there was the black hole they wanted to visit. It was waiting, like a door that no one had ever dared to open. He turned back to the screen. "You understand what you're asking. This would be the most dangerous mission we've ever attempted. If anything goes wrong, we'll have the best crew in the world handling it," Jisoo said firmly. "Captain, we have a chance to change everything we know about space. We can't let fear stop us." Do-hyun sat back down at his desk. He looked at Dr. Han's report one more time, then at the eager face on his screen. He thought about all the space missions that had seemed impossible at first, landing on the moon, living in space stations, sending robots to Mars. Every time, someone had to be brave enough to try. "I'll need 3 days," he said finally. 3 days to review everything and talk to the crew you want. If they agree, and if all your calculations check out." He took a deep breath. "Then we'll start planning the mission." Jisoo's smile was bright enough to light up both their offices. "Thank you, Captain. You won't regret this." As he ended the call, Do-hyun wondered if he had just made the best or worst decision of his career. Either way, he knew that the next few months would change space exploration forever. Commander Kim Yuri stood in the Space Federation's training room, watching the stars through the large window. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of air conditioning. She had received Captain Lee's call 3 days ago, and she still couldn't believe what he had asked her to do. The door opened behind her. Dr. Han Jisoo walked in, followed by Engineer Park Min-ho and Dr. Choi Yun-ha. These were the people who would risk their lives with her on this mission. Yuri turned to face them, studying each person carefully. "So," Yuri said, breaking the silence, "we're going to fly into a black hole." Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp as she looked at Jisoo. "Tell me why we won't die." Jisoo stepped forward. She placed her tablet on the table and brought up a 3D model of their target black hole. "This one is special," she explained. "It's very small, and it spins in a unique way. My calculations show that its outer edge is different from other black holes. We might be able to get close enough to study it without being pulled in. Min-ho moved closer to examine the model. His eyes lit up as he looked at the data. The ship we're building can handle the gravity, he said. I've designed special shields that should protect us from the worst effects. But, he looked at the others. We'll be testing them for the first time out there. Yun-ha, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. What about our bodies? She asked. Even with shields, the forces will be intense. She pulled out her own tablet and showed them medical charts. We'll need special suits, special training. We have to prepare for things no human has ever experienced. Yuri listened to them all. She had flown dozens of space missions, but this was different. This time, they would fly towards the one thing every space pilot was taught to avoid. How long do we have to train? She asked. 3 months, Jisoo answered. That's how long it will take to build the ship and run all the safety checks. We need to be ready by then. The room fell quiet again. Each person was thinking about what lay ahead, about their families, their lives, and the choice they were making. Yuri walked to the table and placed her hand on it, looking at each team member. If we do this, she said slowly, we do it right. No shortcuts. No risks we don't need to take. We train until every move is perfect. Until we can do our jobs in our sleep. She looked directly at Jisoo. Your math better be right, Doctor. Jisoo nodded firmly. I've checked it 1,000 times, but you're right. We need to be perfect. All of us. Over the next 3 months, they trained harder than they ever had before. Yuri ran endless flight simulations, learning how to fly near a black hole. Min-ho tested every part of their ship again and again, fixing problems before they could become dangerous. Yun had designed new medical procedures, preparing for everything that could go wrong. Jisoo worked with them all, making sure her calculations stayed true as they planned the mission. They trained together and separately. They learned each other's strengths and weaknesses. They became more than a crew. They became a team that trusted each other with their lives. As the days passed, news of their mission spread through the Space Federation. Some people called them heroes, others called them crazy, but the 4 of them didn't pay attention to any of that. They were too busy preparing for what could be humanity's greatest journey, or its most terrible mistake. The day their ship was finished, they stood together in the hangar, looking up at it. The Horizon Seeker gleamed under the bright lights, its black and silver hull ready for the challenge ahead. Tomorrow, they would begin their journey to the black hole. Tonight, they shared one last quiet moment together on Earth, each lost in their own thoughts about the adventure ahead. The Horizon Seeker lifted off from Earth on a clear morning in March. Commander Kim Yuri sat in the pilot's seat, her hands steady on the controls as they rose through the atmosphere. Behind her, the rest of the crew stayed quiet, each focused on their own tasks. All systems normal, Engineer Park Min-ho reported from his station. His fingers moved quickly across his screens, checking every part of their ship. Hull integrity at 100%. Shields functioning perfectly. Dr. Choi Yun-ha watched her medical displays carefully. Crew vital signs are stable, she said. No unusual stress readings. She glanced at her teammates, making sure they were handling the launch well. Dr. Han Jisoo stared out the window as Earth grew smaller behind them. She had dreamed of this moment for years, but now that it was real, she felt a mix of excitement and fear. Her calculations were in the ship's computers, guiding them toward their target. The small black hole waiting at the edge of the solar system. The launch went smoothly, and soon they were in deep space. Earth looked like a blue marble floating in the darkness. Yuri turned on the autopilot and faced her crew. First phase complete, she said. It will take us 2 weeks to reach the black hole. Until then, we stick to the plan. Regular checks on all systems. Daily practice drills. No mistakes. The first few days passed quietly. They fell into a routine, checking equipment, running tests, and preparing for what lay ahead. At night, or what they called night in space, They would gather in the ship's common room to eat and talk. "Tell me again about the black hole," Yuri asked Jisoo during one of these meals. "What makes this one different?" Jisoo put down her food packet. "Most black holes are huge and dangerous," she explained. "But this one is special. It's very small and spins in just the right way. This creates a sort of safe zone around its edge. If we're careful, we can get close enough to study it without being pulled in." "And if your math is wrong?" Minho asked quietly. The room went silent. They all knew the answer, but Jisoo said it anyway. "If I'm wrong, we won't survive. The black hole will pull us in," and she didn't finish the sentence. Yinho reached out and touched Jisoo's hand. "We all knew the risks when we signed up," she said. "And we all believe in your work." As the days passed, they grew closer as a team. They learned each other's habits and quirks. Yuri liked to hum old songs while she checked the navigation. Minho told terrible jokes that made everyone groan. Yunha kept plants in the medical bay, saying they helped keep the air clean. Jisoo would sometimes wake up in the middle of the night to recheck her calculations. On the 10th day, they saw it for the first time. A small dark spot in space, barely visible against the stars. But their instruments showed what it really was, a point where space itself bent and twisted, where the normal rules of physics started to break down. "There it is," Jisoo whispered. "Our black hole." Yuri looked at her crew. "Final checks, everyone. In 4 days, we'll be closer to that thing than anyone has ever been. If anyone has doubts, now is the time to say so." Nobody spoke. They had come too far to turn back now. They had trained too hard, prepared too carefully. Whatever waited for them at the black hole, discovery or disaster, they would face it together. That night, as the others slept, Jisoo floated in the observation room, watching the dark spot grow slowly larger. Soon they would know if her theories were right. Soon they would either make history or become part of it. She touched the cold window and whispered, "Please let me be right." The Horizon Seeker moved slowly through space, its engines barely running. Through the main window, the black hole looked like a perfect dark circle against the stars. Commander Kim Yuri kept her hands tight on the controls, watching every reading on her screens. "Distance to event horizon, 50,000 kilometers," Engineer Park Minho announced. His voice was steady, but his hand shook slightly as he worked at his station. "Shields are holding. No damage from the gravity yet." Dr. Han Jisoo stared at her data screens in amazement. "This is incredible," she said softly. "The readings match my calculations perfectly. The black hole's spin is creating exactly the kind of safe zone I predicted." Dr. Choi Eun-ha monitored everyone's vital signs carefully. "Heart rates are elevated, but within normal range," she reported. "Everyone's handling the stress well so far." Yuri guided the ship closer, following the carefully planned approach path. They had practiced this hundreds of times in simulations, but this was different. This was real. One small mistake could send them too close to the black hole's powerful pull. 40,000 kilometers, Minho called out. "Wait, something's strange. I'm getting unusual energy readings." Jisoo rushed to check his screens. Her eyes widened as she saw the numbers. "This isn't possible," she whispered. "The black hole, it's not just bending space, it's doing something else." Suddenly, bright lights appeared around the black hole's edge. They looked like dancing ribbons of blue and purple energy, moving in patterns no one had ever seen before. "What is that?" Yuri asked, trying to keep her voice calm. "It's some kind of radiation," Jisoo answered, typing quickly on her computer. "But it's not dangerous radiation. It's like the black hole is releasing energy in a controlled way." This shouldn't be possible. The lights grew brighter as they got closer. 30,000 kilometers now. The ship's instruments were recording everything, sending data back to Earth. Back home, scientists would be watching in amazement, seeing things that changed everything they knew about black holes. "Look at this," Inha said, pointing to one of her screens. "The energy from the black hole. It's not random. There's a pattern to it, almost like it's trying to tell us something." Jisoo finished her thought. The scientist in her wanted to understand everything about this strange phenomenon. But another part of her felt something else. Wonder and a little bit of fear. Yuri kept the ship steady as they continued their approach. 25,000 kilometers. The minimum safe distance they had planned was 20,000. They were almost there. Hull integrity still at 100%, Minho reported. But these energy patterns are affecting our instruments. Some readings are starting to get confused. "Should we stop here?" Yuri asked, looking at Jisoo. This was her mission, her theory. The decision had to be hers. Jisoo looked at the beautiful, impossible lights dancing around the black hole. Everything they were seeing proved her theories right, but in ways she had never expected. They had come to study a dangerous space phenomenon. Instead, they found something that looked almost alive. "No," she said firmly. "We continue to 20,000 kilometers, but slowly. Record everything. The whole world needs to see this." As they moved closer, the lights grew more intense. The black hole's gravity pulled at their ship, but the safe zone Jisoo had predicted kept them from being drawn in. They were seeing things no human had ever seen before, learning secrets about the universe that no one had imagined. 22,000 kilometers, Minho announced, almost at our target distance. They were about to make history, but none of them knew that in a few minutes, everything would change. The true test of their mission was about to begin. The warning alarms started exactly 3 minutes after they reached their target distance from the black hole. Engineer Park Minho's screen suddenly filled with red alerts, and the Horizon Seeker's main computer began reporting multiple system failures. "Power systems are failing," Minho announced, his fingers moving rapidly across his controls. "The energy from the black hole is interfering with our main reactor. Backup systems are engaging, but they won't last long." Commander Kim Yuri immediately began turning the ship away from the black hole. "How much time do we have?" she asked, her voice remaining steady despite the crisis. 30 minutes on backup power," Minho replied. "After that, we lose life support." He paused, checking more readings. "The main reactor won't restart while we're this close to the black hole. The energy patterns are too strong." Dr. Choi Eun-ha looked up from her medical station. "We need to leave now. Without main power, the radiation shields will fail. We'll all be exposed." But Dr. Han Jisoo wasn't listening to them. She stared at her screens, watching the strange energy patterns from the black hole. The beautiful lights they had seen earlier were changing. They were forming new patterns, moving in ways that seemed impossible. "Wait," she said suddenly. "Look at this." She transferred her screen data to the main display. The energy patterns had organized themselves into regular shapes. They pulsed with a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. "This isn't random interference. These patterns, they're too regular, too organized." Yuri shook her head. "We don't have time to study this. Without main power, we'll die here." "You don't understand," Jisoo insisted. "These patterns suggest something incredible. The black hole isn't just a hole in space. It's like a door. And I think it's trying to show us how to open it." The crew fell silent. Outside their window, the black hole's strange lights continued their dance, more beautiful and terrifying than ever. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Eun-ha asked quietly. "My original calculations showed we could survive near a black hole," Jisoo explained. "But this is more than that. These energy patterns match theoretical models for stable space-time passages. If I'm right, this black hole might be a gateway to somewhere else." Minho checked his screens again. 25 minutes of power left. "If we're going to leave, we need to decide now." Yuri looked at each member of her crew. As commander, The final decision was hers. They could turn back now, return to Earth safely, and report what they had found. It would still be an amazing discovery, or they could risk everything on Jisu's theory. If we stay and you're wrong, we die, Yuri said to Jisu. If we leave, we might never get another chance to study this. Jisu nodded. I know, but think about it. We came here to learn if someone could survive a black hole. Now we have a chance to actually try, to go where no one has ever gone before. Minho's voice was firm. Whatever we decide together. That was our agreement from the start. Yunha stood up from her station and walked to the main window. The black hole's lights seemed to respond to her movement, shifting their patterns. In medical school, they taught us to trust our instruments, she said. But they also taught us to trust our instincts. And my instincts tell me Dr. Han is right. This is more than just strange physics. 20 minutes of power, Minho announced. Yuri took a deep breath. She had trained her whole life to keep people safe in space, to avoid unnecessary risks, to make the smart choice. But she had also trained to explore, to push the boundaries of human knowledge. She turned to face her crew. We need to decide now. Do we stay or do we go? They chose to stay. As the Horizon Seeker's backup power counted down, Commander Kim Yuri guided their ship closer to the black hole. The strange lights surrounded them now, creating patterns that seemed to point the way forward. 15 minutes of power remaining, Engineer Park Minho reported. His voice was calm, but his hands gripped his console tightly. The black hole's gravity is getting stronger. Dr. Han Jisu worked quickly at her station, analyzing the energy patterns. These lights aren't random, she said. They're showing us a path, a way through the black hole's outer layer that matches my calculations exactly. Dr. Choi Yunha monitored their vital signs carefully. Everyone's heart rate is very high, but we're still within safe limits, she announced. No sign of dangerous radiation exposure yet. Yuri followed Jisu's directions, guiding their ship along the path marked by the lights. The black hole grew larger in their view, until it filled their entire window. The stars behind them seemed to bend and stretch around its edges. 10 minutes of power, Minho called out. We're almost there, Jisu said. The safe zone I calculated should be right here. Suddenly, the ship shuddered. Everyone grabbed their seats as the Horizon Seeker passed through an invisible barrier. The black hole's powerful gravity pulled at them, but something else pushed back, keeping them stable. What's happening? Yuri asked, fighting to keep the ship steady. It's exactly what my calculations predicted, Jisu explained, her voice filled with wonder. The black hole's spin is creating a perfectly balanced point. We're not being crushed because the forces are canceling each other out. The lights around them grew brighter, forming a tunnel of swirling colors. The ship's instruments showed impossible readings. Space itself seemed to bend and fold around them. 5 minutes of power, Minho warned. Look, Yunha pointed at the main window. Through the tunnel of lights, they could see something no human had ever seen before. Past the black hole's event horizon, space opened up into somewhere else. They saw stars, but not the stars they knew. These were arranged in patterns they had never seen before, and in the distance, they saw shapes that looked like giant rings of light, spinning slowly in space. Another galaxy, Jisu whispered, or maybe another universe. The black hole isn't just a hole in space, it's a bridge. The ship's main power suddenly came back online. All systems returned to normal, as if the strange energy from the black hole was now helping them instead of hurting them. Hull integrity is perfect, Minho reported, checking his instruments in amazement. All systems are working better than ever. It's like we're meant to be here. Yuri kept the ship steady as they moved further into this new space. The crushing gravity they had feared never came. Instead, they felt a gentle pull, guiding them forward. Start recording everything, Yuri ordered. Every measurement, every image. The world needs to see this. They spent the next hour taking readings and capturing images of their surroundings. Jisoo's calculations had been right, but the reality was more amazing than any of them had imagined. They hadn't just survived a black hole. They had discovered a gateway to another part of the universe. "We should start planning our return trip," Yuri said finally. "We need to tell everyone what we found here." As they prepared to head back, they all knew that space travel would never be the same. They had proved that black holes weren't just destroyers of everything that came near them. They were doorways to new frontiers, waiting for brave explorers to find them. Jisoo looked out at the strange stars one last time. "This is just the beginning," she said softly. "We've opened a door that will never close again." 3 months after their historic journey, the crew of the Horizon Seeker sat together in a quiet corner of the Space Federation headquarters in Geneva. Outside, reporters from every country waited to hear them speak about their discovery. But for now, they had a moment to themselves. Commander Kim Yuri looked at her team with pride. They had changed everything people knew about space travel, and they had done it together. Dr. Han Jisoo sat next to her, reviewing her presentation one last time. Engineer Park Min-ho checked the video recordings from their journey on his tablet. Dr. Choi Yun-ha arranged her medical data carefully. "Are you ready?" Yuri asked them. "Once we show the world what we found, nothing will ever be the same." Their return journey had been perfect. The black hole had let them leave just as safely as it had let them enter. When they reached Earth, they spent weeks explaining everything to scientists and space experts. At first, many people didn't believe them, but their recordings and data proved everything. Now, scientists from all over the world were studying their discovery. The Space Federation had already started planning more missions to explore other black holes. Jisoo's calculations were being taught in universities everywhere. "I still can't believe how wrong we were about black holes," Min-ho said, shaking his head. "We thought they were just giant space vacuums that destroyed everything. Instead, they're doorways to other places." Yun-ha nodded. "The medical data is amazing too. We were in that black hole for an hour, but our bodies handled it perfectly. No radiation damage, no problems from the gravity. It's like the black hole knew exactly how to keep us safe." Jisoo smiled as she looked at her notes. "That's what's most exciting," she said. "The black hole wasn't just a natural space event. It was more like a transportation system. Something built to help travelers cross great distances in space. We might not be the first ones to use it." Captain Lee Do-hyun walked into the room. He had supported their mission from the start, even when others said it was too dangerous. Now he looked at them with respect and pride. "It's time," he said. "The whole world is waiting to hear your story." As they walked toward the conference room, they remembered their journey. They had risked everything on Jisoo's calculations and their belief in each other. Now they would share what they learned with everyone. Yuri stepped up to the microphone first. Cameras flashed as she began to speak. 3 months ago, we asked a simple question. Could someone survive a black hole? Today, we can answer that question with certainty. Not only can we survive them, but black holes might be humanity's greatest discovery. They are not destroyers of worlds, but bridges between them. She explained their journey while showing videos from their trip. The audience gasped when they saw the beautiful lights and the strange new stars beyond the black hole. Scientists in the crowd leaned forward, taking notes quickly. When Jisoo presented her calculations, she spoke with confidence. "This is just the beginning," she said. "What we found changes everything we know about space travel. Black holes aren't something to fear anymore. They're humanity's path to the stars." After the presentation, as people asked excited questions, the crew shared a quiet look. They had done more than just survive a black hole. They had opened a door that would never close. Future generations would travel through space in ways they never imagined before. That evening, they met one last time before going their separate ways. Each would help lead new missions and teach others what they had learned. But they would always remember their journey together, when they turned humanity's greatest fear into its greatest hope. To the future, Yuri said, raising a glass. To the future, they all answered, knowing that thanks to their courage and trust in each other, that future was brighter than ever before.